So I was asked by one of my longtime YouTube friends, Dino, some questions in regards to starting up a small business such as this. First and foremost, the thing that everybody needs to understand is when you start a small business such as this, unfortunately, our government does not want it to exist. They make your life extremely difficult. For example, everybody thinks that you're going to get these huge tax breaks and everything else. And to be honest with you, I somewhat fell into that category. I remember my first year thinking, man, at the end of this year, I have put out so much tax money, it's not even funny. I know I am going to get a huge return back. And I was really looking forward to that because I was going to take that money and, just throw it all back into the company, get all good equipment, a good size work shed, just all kinds of good stuff. We got our return back and I was just blown away. I was absolutely blown away. It was virtually nothing. Just virtually nothing. I swear to God, a good tax return in this world, it's like rumored to exist, just like a freaking Sasquatch, but we never see him. It's absolutely freaking amazing that you can work your tail off and still get nowhere because our government takes every little freaking thing they can. Life-sucking little bastards. If I had to do it all over again, would I choose leather? That's a really tough question. Because, let's face it, I do way more than just leather, but leather is the flagship of what I do. And leather is a very difficult thing. I can honestly tell you I've done both. I've made knives and I've done leather. Now, am I as efficient and as awesome at making knives as I am as leather? Of course not. However, is what I did learn from doing that and what I've continued to learn is making knives is far dirtier. Making leather is far harder. Now understand, I'm not taking away from the knife makers out there because let me tell you, that is an art all itself. And it's actually an art that I thought I was going to enjoy a lot more than what I do. I do like making knives, but the fact that I come from a fabricating background, it just throws me right back into that world. And it's something that puts such a nasty taste in my mouth that I enjoy working with leather far more than what I enjoy working with knives and steel strikers and everything else these days. Every time the price of beef goes up, obviously leather is going to go up. People will come to the website, they will look at the prices and they will think, holy shit, that is expensive. And they're absolutely correct. It is expensive. But when you take into the material cost of the leather, you take into the account of how much tools cost, you take into consideration how much thread, dye, finish, all that stuff costs. And when you look at how much a sheath is, $85, $220, it still isn't that bad when you look at how expensive this can be as a hobby or as a business. I made way more at this when I was doing it as a hobby because obviously it was all under the table cash and I did it in my free time. So I would go to work, come home, do this in the evenings, and work until it was time to go to bed. So basically is what I was doing is I had a full-time job and then a part-time job. All that money was great. I was able to buy, knives and toys and everything else. But as what I found is I didn't really want to buy all that stuff. As what I found is I enjoyed doing this. And so that is exactly why this was the first thing I thought of the moment I lost my job. It's been nothing but a roller coaster ride. Absolutely nothing but a roller coaster ride. From financially to emotionally to physically. You know, 1 minute orders are coming in like crazy, the next minute they drop. You know, 1 minute you're making items and you're just flying through them and you're doing great. The next minute you're making mistakes. And when it comes to leather, there is no going back. You make that cut, you're done. So if you don't think things through and you're constantly screwing up items, you're losing a lot of money and material. Another misconception that people have is when you own a small business like this and doing what I'm doing, oftentimes from the outside in, people have this misconception that you're just making a crap load of money, getting rich and everything else. And that's just so far from the case. And that's exactly why, or not the only reason, but one of the reasons I've started doing this series is so that people can see how I work, where I work, with what equipment. So now you can look at my shop and go, oh my God, this guy does not make a lot of money. This guy is not rich. This guy is a normal Joe Blow, just like you and I. Do you know what you want to know? Everybody asks how much money I make. And I'll tell you this. I live on a mountain man's salary and I don't live in the mountains. Plain and simple. Do you want to know what my salary is? What I pay myself for doing this? $0. My customers have been absolutely amazing. The customer base that I have built just blows my mind. These guys and gals are absolutely amazing. Literally in the 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this, I have had maybe 2 negative dealings with customers and maybe 2 people outside of my customers. That is it. Everybody knows that I'm not going to run after everybody like an asshole and try to puff out my chest and everything else. And my customers show me that same respect, because why wouldn't we? The customers will call me or they will email me and they will tell me what they want. But most of the time they're willing to let me have a little bit of free reign because they understand that, you know, when we're doing things like this, as a craftsman, we need a little leeway because not all knives are made the same. So my customers, man, you know what? I could not ask for anybody better. They are always prompt with, you know, getting back with me, even though sometimes it's hard for me to be prompt. They always, you know, make payment right away. They never harass me as far as, you know, prices go, because they understand it's their money. They choose to spend it on whatever the hell they want. They work hard for it, so they're going to spend it on what they want, and they don't let anybody else tell them what they can and can't spend their hard-earned money on. They're all very respectful. I just can't say enough great things about my customers. Love them to death. Basically, something that I've started doing on my website is I've been offering kits. And the reason I've been offering these kits is because I kid you not, I probably get 10 emails, sometimes 20 emails a day of people asking me how to do specific processes in leather and everything else. And I love being able to answer everybody's questions, but they need to understand that I get hundreds of messages a day. The first 3 hours of my morning is spent answering emails, doing invoices and everything else. Again, not complaining, because without being able to do that, I would not be doing this full time at all. So now the customer can actually try their hand at this leather work because of these kits. They can now afford to buy a single piece of leather. They can now afford to buy a template. Well, they don't even need to worry about trying to figure out how to make a template because I'm going to supply that. Now they can find out, wow, this takes a lot of time. This takes a lot of patience. If you don't do this right, it looks horrible. There is a major art to making good quality sheaths. Now, anybody can just slap together a sheath. Anybody. I can teach anybody how to slap together a sheath in just a few hours. Is that sheath going to look Wolfecustoms quality? Absolutely not. This is something that I pour my heart and soul in. I don't look at this as me building a product. I look at this as me building a piece of me. I know that sounds extremely cheesy, but I look at this as art, plain and simple. So basically, when it boils down to it, doing something like this is extremely difficult. I have told many people my stance on starting a new business like this, and a lot of people, I think, actually think I'm trying to change their minds so that I don't have competition. First and foremost, I absolutely do not mind competition at all. Competition is what builds us as individuals. There is millions upon millions of people in this world. There's plenty of business to go around. So as far as competition goes, I welcome it. Most of the people that are considered my competitors, I'm actually good friends with. We talk to each other on, not necessarily a regular basis, but a lot of us actually share. We talk shop. That's what it all boils down to. And we all support each other. So when I give people advice about starting these businesses and stuff, a lot of times it sounds like I'm trying to talk them out of it. And that's not the case. I'm just trying to give them the facts. In fact, I will be one of their biggest supporters when they want to start something like this, because I'm here to tell you it's extremely hard. Here I am in my second year, and let me tell you, the second year is by far harder than the first year. Everybody says the first year is the hardest. They are liars. This second year has been by far the hardest. Well, Dino, one of the other questions that you had was, what about warranties, and do customers complain about mistakes and everything else? This is what I'm going to tell you. We are not machines. All of my customers understand that I'm not a machine, that I am a living, breathing person. So when I make a sheath, if I make a mistake, it's going to happen. There's not a single sheath that I've made that I can't look at it and say, oh, I screwed up there. None of them ever come out perfect, but every single one I strive to make perfect. The customers and everything else, they're going to look at these items and they're going to say, this is absolutely amazing. 98% of the time, they're never going to look at that small blemish and be like, oh, he screwed up here, and want a refund. It's just not going to happen. And I've also found that if you make a mistake and you just communicate with your customer and say, look, this is what happened, this is what I did, would you like me to start over? I know it's a very small scratch, but some people might dislike it. The customer, I've never had a customer say, oh yeah, start over. I can't handle a scratch. They want these blemishes. These blemishes make the product. They show that a person made it and not a machine. It's as simple as that.